So much reaction, of course, to this decision. Let's go to Twitter, shall we, to start off. And Gary Lineker, a Leicester fan, said, after all that Claudio Ranieri has done for Leicester City, to sack him now is inexplicable, unforgivable, and gut-wrenchingly sad. Jamie Carragher, absolute joke. Meanwhile, Ian Dark says, ruthless, cynical, classless, ungrateful sacking of Claudio Ranieri. Shame on you, Leicester.
I'm sorry, boys. This is a profession. This isn't just storybook and it's all lovely-dovey and what a fantastic job. This is a profession where it's cutthroat. It's called professional football, and when you don't do the job, then guess what? You get moved aside and somebody else comes in. Now, has Ranieri done a great job last season for Leicester? 100%, absolutely magnificent. But guess what? You don't get anything for history. It's what you're producing now that counts. And Leicester City are facing relegation in the face. They're probably going to get kicked out of the Champions League by Sevilla. My goodness, if Ranieri hadn't won the Premier League last season, he would have been gone months ago. I think the owners have stuck by him as long as they can, and they can't do it any longer. And I, for one, agree.
I'm a romantic. I would have loved to have seen Claudio Ranieri given the chance to finish this season out. I think he's built that much equity. I think he has accomplished so much more than we would have thought would be possible for Leicester City. And when you achieve something that is astounding, that is something we didn't think was possible, something that even when it was happening, we could not believe it that it was happening, that equity has to value something. That has to count for something. And somehow, I understand the situation that Leicester is in. And I understand that it's a business. I understand that it's a profession. And yet you feel that if any circumstance would be able to circumvent the reasonings that you're given, that are all valid reasons, would be this. Because Leicester City was never going to win a title. Claudio Ranieri led them to a title. It's never going to happen again. We all saw it, we all witnessed it, and now we're also witnessing the fact that this is about numbers. And if you don't have enough points, you're going to be sacked. And eventually, Claudio Ranieri is also a victim of that.
Gab, which side of the fence do you sit on?
I'm closer to Ali on this one, but I want to go back to what Stevie said, where he said, well, if he hadn't won the title last season, he would have been gone a long time ago. If you look at the table, Leicester are not in the relegation zone. They're still 1 point above it. David Moyes, who's dead last, he's still in a job. And part of it is because David Moyes didn't win the title last year, so you didn't have the expectations. In some ways, I think the expectations were part of the undoing here. What I find, frankly, a little bit shocking is the way all of this happened. Leicester issued a statement tonight saying that their first and only goal this season was Premier League survival. Well, if that was the case, then the Premier League table hasn't changed in the last 11 days, which is when Leicester played their last Premier League game, losing to Swansea. It makes you wonder, why didn't you sack him in those 11 days so you could start your hunt for a new manager, if that's all you care about? I think there's more to it than that. I think a lot of it to do with a breakdown in relationships, not so much with the players, but really with some of the backroom staff he inherited from Nigel Pearson, or who were there under Nigel Pearson, and I think that was a difficulty that was kind of at the heart of it, and the club feeling that they couldn't go forward, or the situation wasn't going to improve, decided to go with those guys, and indeed, Craig Shakespeare will be taking charge of the team on Monday when they face Liverpool.
Gab, sure, you don't really believe that, do you? Listen, Alejandro got it right. It was equity, and it went way, way too long. And you're saying they could have done it 2 or 3 weeks ago. Well, 2 or 3 weeks ago, they still thought, you know what, there could be a spark. There could be a change. And there's been absolutely zero spark. There's been zero change. So why do you keep him? It makes no sense whatsoever.
How are you going to show?
There's not one single reason any of us can sit here right now and say why Claudio Ranieri would keep this team in the Premier League. They are sinking fast.
Stevie, that's a whole other issue. But where are you going to see the spark? Are you going to see the spark when you put out your reserves against Millwall? Are you going to see the spark against Seville? In fact, you might argue that, as awful as they were, they showed the spark by scoring that all-important away goal. If you come out and you say, first of all, they gave them a complete vote of confidence 16 days ago, which is a whole other issue as well, of course, you know. And I know that for a fact that Ranieri actually bought into it when they came out and said that. But putting that to one side, you go and you do this now, you're losing 11 days that you could have spent
the only thing we see
for his replacement.
The only thing you and I see is what we see on the field and what we hear. But I can assure you, at Leicester City, in and around the ground, in and around the stadium, every day of the week, the owners have eyes and ears everywhere, listening to the chatter, trying to sum up what the feelings are. Is everybody down? Does everybody feel as though they're going to get better? So, you know, this is not completely just on results, because if it was just results, then in my opinion, it should have gone anyway. But clearly they know that this group of players isn't going to cut it with this manager. They need something, and it isn't coming from Ranieri.
No, I'll agree with you on that one, that they're sitting around listening to the chatter. And as I mentioned earlier, my understanding is that there was a breakdown in relationships with some of the people who he inherited when he took over the job, who had been Nigel Pearson's assistants. And they're the ones who perhaps lost faith in the situation and were and suggested that, you know, maybe there should be a change. So I'll agree with you there. But you know what? That doesn't mean it was the correct decision. That doesn't mean it was handled in a classy way. It doesn't mean it makes any sense whatsoever. Again, if you don't think he's right, then the table hasn't moved since February 12th. They're exactly where they were.
Claudio Ranieri then sacked as coach of Leicester City just 9 months after winning the Premier League with the Foxes. Stevie Nicol, your reaction?
I can't honestly say I'm surprised. People were telling me that the result against Sevilla was something that may lift them, and certainly lift him, and maybe impress the boss. At the end of the day, they got beat again. And quite frankly, it should have been a bigger defeat than it was. So, you know, you tack that along to what else has been going on over the last 3-4 months. I am not shocked that Ranieri is no longer the manager.
Using the Sevilla game, though, as a case study, yes, they were very poor in the first half, but at least they showed a little bit of fighting spirit in the second half. Would that not give you, as an owner, a little bit of hope with regards to Ranieri and what he could do with the team for the remainder?
If this was the start of the season, and we're talking about 6 to 8 games in, and they'd had a bad start, then I would say yes. But we're not. We're coming to the end of the season. It's been a slog the whole way. I'm trying to even remember a highlight during the season.
Manchester City, you would suggest is the only highlight.
Now, how bad is that when we try to pull out one performance over, what, 8 months?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
What about those who are saying that he did so much last season, that he's got money in the bank, the club should be loyal to him? There should be some sort of humility.
Listen, as a player, there's a saying that you're only as good as your last game. And if he's only as good as his last game, then there's no surprise he's out the door. Listen, last year was phenomenal. It was fantastic. But in football, you don't get anything for the past. It's all about the present. It's all about what you do now. And what Leicester and Ranieri are doing now is not good enough.
How much responsibility? We know it always ends at the coach.
Yep.
Obviously, you can't sack the whole team. That's where the coach goes. How much though responsibility should the players take? How much of them should be looking in the mirror tonight and feeling
all of them
that they should be responsible?
Yeah, I think all of them. And I'll be absolutely shocked if they actually don't feel a responsibility for Ranieri leaving. But at the end of the day, the only thing that does happen is the coach goes, and you said it already, you can't sack the team and keep the coach, unfortunately. So, no surprise. Stevie
Nicol, thank you very much. Of course, a lot more reaction to today's news at 6 p.m. Eastern tonight on ESPN FC on ESPN News.
I've just had a statement handed to me from Leicester City now. I can read it to you live on air on Sky Sports News HQ as I speak to you. Leicester City Football Club announces the departure of Claudio Ranieri. He served as first-team manager since July 2015. They won the Premier League title in Ranieri's first season as manager. The vice-chairman and other people here have paid tribute, and I can quote some of those for you here. The vice-chairman, Iwat Srivadhanaprava, the man known as Top, has said, "This has been the most difficult decision I've had to make in nearly 7 years since King Power took ownership of Leicester City. But we are duty-bound to put the club's long-term interests above all sense of personal sentiment, no matter how strong that might be."